What's up, YouTube? My name is Ghrei, and today we are back with a brand new episode of What If Midoriya Had a Quirk. In the last episode, basically what happened was Deku and Toru got talking because in this scenario, Toru Hagakure, I believe, Hagakure, however you pronounce her name, the invisible lass, best girl, and Midoriya are on a team, and on the opposing team is Todoroki and Bakugo. They need to have a very good strategy, and their initial strategy upon breaking in through a window is for Midoriya and Bakugo to start clashing real fierce. And that's really where we left off last time. If you guys enjoy this series, leave a like and comment down below, help out with the algorithm. We'll start doing question of the day. Here's a question for you guys. What ifs do you guys want to see? I will be picking the most liked comments of what ifs that you guys want to see, be putting them in a poll, and once we get 5 of them in a poll, we'll wait for, I'll say, 24, 48 hours. We'll take the top 2 with the most votes, and we will throw those into another poll, wait another 24 to 48 hours, and then the winner of that will be the next series. Anyways, guys, expect Avatar: The Last Airbender 100 Days Challenge as a series, 10 to 20 days at a time. Haven't decided which. That's going to be coming out relatively soon here. Anyways, stick around. Don't want you guys to miss it. And without further ado, let's begin. Toru was bolting for the stairs. She needed to get set up for the showdown with Todoroki and get away from the battle raging behind her. Looking at her hand, or more accurately where her hand would be, she steadied herself with a shallow breath. Never before even attempting the trick Izuku had offered her for this fight, the transparent teammate clenched her fist in determination. It couldn't be that hard, right? Holding her arm up against the wall, she took a deep breath and focused. Never before trying to actively manipulate her quirk, Hagakure held her arm out before her, looking at the wall behind it. If she could just get this down before getting to the showdown with Icy Hot. Suddenly, letting out a joyous and surprised gasp, the see-through student giggled and, with a fist pump, ran with renewed vigor towards the search for the bomb. If she could keep honing this skill in the meantime, she may be able to pull it off reliably for this test. She let out a small sigh of thanks to Midoriya. Maybe her nightmarish idea of being stuck with stealth wasn't reality for her after all. The clashing of the two explosive combatants shook the foundations of the testing grounds and, despite the protests of All Might to both Bakugo and Izuku, breaking the building wasn't a good idea for either team. The dueling rivals were simply too far gone in the catharsis of this battle. Belittled against bigoted. Raw, honed talent fighting strong, molded skill. The flames around the duo were burning red hot, but the smoke in the room was mint green. Hallways toppled to clear the way for a proper battlefield, while hero suits retained scorched threads and padding. Gauntlet clashed against glove, headlong attacks from the Boom King being countered by the Wispy Teen. The entire class watched on in shock as the contest of not only strength, but of willpower played out before their very eyes. However, Midoriya did realize something. Time was ticking, and as much as he wanted to defeat his tormentor here and now, he knew this wasn't the way to do it. He needed to beat this test more than beating this antagonist. With a primal bellow, Midoriya launched himself off of the wall with the aid of his wisps and a fist outstretched towards Katsuki, who promptly dodged. Expecting a sharp punch or fierce orb, Bakugo held up his guard. Silence. Opening his eyes and moving his arm, he saw that Deku was gone. No trace of smoke left behind. Eye twitching and teeth grinding, the explosive student screamed in rage and charged down the hall, turning the nearest corner. He had but a moment to see the broadly and nervously grinning Izuku Midoriya holding capture tape, already mid-air and launching at him far faster than he could react to. Slamming the Megaton Tormentor to the ground, his legs tied up with capture tape, the freckled fighter landed gracefully on his feet. This launch had strained both his quirk and his legs. but he could still move and was more overexerted than injured.
You know, Kajan, you've always been impulsive. I knew you'd hunt me down like that. Good thing you were stomping around like that, or I'd never be able to time my jump right.
Though the eruptive egomaniac was silent at first, slowly but surely his brain processed what had been said by Midoriya. His face contorted in further rage, and he began screeching bloody murder. While Bakugo writhed and howled like a wild animal on the floor out of sheer anger and disbelief, the wispy teen jogged up the stairwell just past the caught mock villain. Pressing into his earpiece, he said but one word, and Toru swallowed hard. It was time.
Shatter.
After getting bear-hugged by Toru, which was her way of telling Midoriya where she was, the regrouped duo, led by the invisible girl, made a silent beeline for the bomb room. With very little time left, they couldn't afford any more unnecessary clashes, and luckily for the duo, Toru had already scouted out where the bomb was. If Toru could just touch the weapon, then maybe they could. The two entered the room, and Deku's heart dropped to his stomach. The bomb was encased in a thick layer of ice. It had to be at bare minimum 6 feet thick at its thinnest parts. It was as though it was cocooned within the frost, and although Deku did wonder why they'd freeze the bomb and risk disabling it, Todoroki spoke up as though reading his mind as the frosty foe calmly stepped out from behind the weapon, explaining their process.
Don't worry, it's still active. I kept some space around it on the inside, just enough to keep it functioning without losing any structural integrity.
Looking again, Midoriya could see what he was talking about now. There was a small ring on the floor around the device, through the icy shell. Gritting his teeth, Izuku looked in Shoto's direction. Much to his dismay, the cold combatant was staring daggers yet again at Midoriya. The latter was first to speak.
Did I do something wrong? Why are you staring at me like that?
He uttered nervously. Todoroki scoffed before throwing a massive wave of ice in the freckled fighter's direction. Narrowly dodging the onslaught, the wispy teen lunged out of the way on his wisps, sliding to a stop on the other side of the battlefield.
If I did something to upset you, I want to know. At least...
Cut off by another frigid wave, the studious combatant narrowly dodged yet again before continuing.
At least talk to me about this after the test, okay?
Yet another blast came his way, but this time Izuku hurled a wisp at the wall looming before him, breaking off just enough of a chunk to keep himself away from the frost.
I'll talk once this is over.
Taking a shallow breath, Todoroki summoned forth a spiral of ice, threatening to overtake the room. With a quick analysis, Midoriya launched several small but dense orbs into structural weak points he could see in the ice, halting the progression of it, but not fully destroying the spiral. Scoffing yet again, Shoto mocked another wave before jumping at Midoriya with an outstretched hand. Barely catching this game plan swap in time, the wispy teen launched out of the way, mere millimeters from being turned into a popsicle. As he landed, he prepped 2 orbs before shouting, "Now!" But nothing happened. Todoroki, face unmoved, watched as Midoriya summoned 3 more orbs of varying sizes. Launching them all at once, the icy antagonist attempted to throw up a wall to protect from them, but was already flying back by the time he could call forth his abilities. Shaking his head, he looked at his costume. 1 scorch mark? Hadn't Deku summoned 5 orbs? Grunting and shaking off his pain and confusion, Shoto eyed Izuku closely and watched as he created another orb before flinging it at the icy hot student. Prepared to slide out of the way of it, the frosty foe was taken aback as his gut was bombarded by 5 separate spheres at an angle he wasn't expecting. Coughing up spittle and stumbling back from the massive impacts, Todoroki glared at the freckled fighter yet again, who seemed highly focused. Suddenly realizing what was going on, Shoto whipped around and met a speeding Izuku, launching down from behind him with capture tape in hand with a cold open palm strike to the arm. Toppling head over heels while still midair, the wispy teen clutched his arm tightly, frost clinging to it, crying out in pain through gritted teeth.
Izuku!
Cried out Toru. And this was all Todoroki needed. Aiming where he'd heard the voice, Shoto threw yet another massive wave of frost, capturing Hakaguri within it with a glint. Huffing slightly with frost detailing his left side, Todoroki looked back to Deku.
Using her like a window and a mirror from a distance. Clever. But now it's just you and me, and seeing as you needed her as a backup plan, I get the feeling you know you can't defeat me."
The room was deafeningly quiet. Both individuals still in the fight, sporting serious looks aimed towards one another. Neither wanted to move, for that'd give the other the advantage. However, the timer was still ticking down, and Izuku needed to move first. Both parties knew this. Thus, when a sudden bombardment of wisps flew in the face of the icy hot antagonist, he was able to put up an ice wall to prevent them from hitting their mark. In the space of a few seconds, the entire room shifted to a war zone. Shattered ice and scorch marks littering the area, with mint smoke billowing from several locations. The whole time, Toru was secretly begging that she'd be able to help out in some way. It was then that she remembered Izuku's backup plan.
"If it comes down to it, I need you to serve as a sort of distraction. Your quirk works by manipulating the light around you, right?"
pondered Deku.
"Yeah, I think so. Why does that matter?" "Can you mimic the glow of one of these?"
inquired the freckled fighter, gesturing to an exceptionally bright wisp, which Hagakure fawned over.
"So pretty!" "But can you mimic the glow?"
asked the wispy teen yet again. Still inspecting it, he heard a come from his partner, who held out a hand and, after a few seconds, managed to roughly copy the light's color glowing from her fingers. Memorizing the color of those orbs' glow, Hagakure took a deep breath, grateful that the frigid fighter had only frozen her up to her waist. As blows were exchanged and both fighters grew tired and weary, the transparent student pressed her comm device to alert Midoriya. After just a moment, Todoroki saw a bright malachite green light fluttering in his periphery, and thinking it to be a massive wisp like the one at the UA festival, he panickedly turned towards it and threw up a gargantuan wall of ice, only to realize it was a trick before turning around. His movements being slowed from a combination of overexertion and sheer cold, Shoto could only watch as a heavy, large orb came into contact with his gut. Time seemed to slow for the icy hot hero as the sphere slowly drifted into his torso, and the instant the steam gave way to the actual light behind it, the sudden geyser of heat and force sent him spiraling head over heels, and the impact planted him firmly against a far wall. Breathing heavily, Midoriya shuffled over to Shoto, hands mildly shaking as he went to tie up the latter's own. Suddenly, much to the shock of Toru, Midoriya, and all those spectating, the frigid fighter grabbed his arm and began to encase the calculating combatant in an ice cocoon, sealed tighter than the bomb by far. As time slowed down and Izuku finally realized what was going on, it was too late for him to leap away. His right leg was frozen all the way through and his left was frozen in place. Closing his eyes, praying he hit his true mark with that last massive wisp, the freckled fighter finally gave in to the cold, being frozen all the way up to his neck. The room was silent for a moment, and it seemed the victor was clear. However, before Todoroki could stand once again, the tape from the floor was whipped around his arms and legs tightly. Bound and unable to move, shocked and exhausted, it took all of the icy antagonist's willpower not to pass out as his head hit the cold concrete floor around him. Looking up, he saw a pair of gloves being put on by the newly freed Toru Hagakure, whose entrapment was partially shattered, mint steam still drifting up from the spot. With a final grunt, Todoroki passed out, and the transparent teammate helped to break Izuku out of his frosty binds with a nearby metal pole. Looking at the time left, there was only a matter of seconds before the villains would have won. Slowly but surely, everyone in the observation room began to clap. The spectacle they'd witnessed was by all accounts incredible, and after the maintenance of the final hero and villain groups, classmates kept applauding Toru and Deku for their cleverness quirk-wise. Kirishima was entranced by Bakugo's manliness, and Ida gave Shoto praise aplenty for his planning ahead. However, there was still something left on the freckled fighter's mind. Meeting up with Todoroki at the end of the day, having to stop Icy Hot before he could rush home, Midoriya inquired about why the frosty foe seemed to have it out for him.
"I heard from Bakugo that you're getting special treatment from All Might,"
muttered Shoto.
Or at least from his new protege.
At this, the wispy teen covered his mouth anxious.
How? When?
Sighing at the lack of professionalism in his ex-opponent, Shoto glared daggers at Izuku.
I won't lose to you again.
You're just a hurdle, and I will get past you in one way or another. With that, he shuffled away without another word, and Deku gulped. This would be a long year. And that'll do it for today's episode. What do you guys think? You think this is realistic? Do you think Deku shouldn't have won? Do you think he should have won in a different way? And do you think he deserved the glory more than Toru, or do you like how Toru got some of the spotlight here? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to let me know what ifs you want to see next. And thank you guys so much for watching. Y'all are beautiful people. You guys are amazing. You should feel amazing. And we will see you in the next episode. Good.